Welcome to the Earth Tools shipping department, which today we are not shipping anything. We are showing you how to put together and use a Zilli Jab planter. This is an item that we used to carry at Earth Tools years ago, and due to a supply problem stopped carrying, but now we have a supplier again. So the jab planter is a device that you put seeds in the hopper, and as you walk forward and jab the thing in the ground, it automatically sticks a seed in the ground every so often, every time you jab it. Differs from a lot of other jab planters on the market that you have to drop the seeds in manually. This thing actually has a seed hopper, and it automatically advances the seed disc with every jab, dropping new seeds in. So anyway, this is the way your Zilli Jab planter will come in a box, of course, disassembled. And I'm going to show you a few tricks about putting it together. It's really very simple, but just in case. So you've got this actuator arm, you've got the handle, lid. This lid doesn't go on there, but we're not going to put it on right now. You've got the necessary hardware to attach the handle and kind of link everything together here. They've got a lock nut on the bottom, or on the one end of it I should say, and a big fender washer, and they typically from the factory have got this nut and bolt just kind of tightened in place, but that's just so it doesn't get lost. We actually want that nut to be slightly loose, so I'm going to loosen that a little bit, like so, because there has to be some movement. That is, this arm has to be able to pivot when the thing is assembled. Another thing is the handle is not fully symmetrical. As you can see, there's a little cutout right here. That cutout, when assembling this thing, I'm going to go ahead and stick this, well, actually before I do that, but yeah, getting ahead of myself. The cutout goes up in this orientation so that the handle can clear going down into this when this thing advances up and down. So that's the way that's going to go. But another very important thing is, as you can see, the pivot point of this drive arm is on one side of the frame. Well, if you put it together like this, which is I was just about to do, it won't work because this thing doesn't come anywhere near the drive tabs on the bottom. This has to cross over. So it actually inserts between here, and then you run it up through here. So now this thing will actually work. So I'll put this on here. Fender washer. Run this nut down. And I want just enough room here that this will move. Now I've got a little excessive clearance there, so I'm actually going to tighten that nut towards the bolt head just a little bit, and then I will hold the bolt head in place, tighten the lock nut, okay, that moves, and voila, as you can see, this drive tang, which is tempered spring steel, contacts those tabs and pushes them around every time. And down in here, we can see that the seed disc has holes in it. So a few random seeds in there. I was trying this out earlier. So that's the way it works. And the depth is adjustable on the bottom. You can loosen up these wing nuts here and slide this platform up or down. So the minimum depth is that it will push this plunger into the ground about 3/4 of an inch. Maximum depth, you can get it up to nearly 3 inches where that seed is buried. There's a spring steel tab laying across the top here that kind of scrapes the mud and the seed back off the end of the plunger. Now if it's really, really wet when you're using this, and you probably shouldn't be planting when it's that wet, the seed could stick right to the square end of that and actually make it back up into there if it's got some mud like packed on the end if you're in particularly clay soil. But anyway, if it's that wet, don't seed. But yeah, you just adjust this appropriately for the type of seed you're using, lock it down into place. All these parts are replaceable. Every bit on this thing is available as a replacement part, and we stock all the fast-moving ones. There is an owner's manual that comes with it that, of course, you should read. It's pretty simple, and the parts list, there's a parts list in the back of the manual, so you have part numbers for everything. So the way you would use this thing, of course, is fill it with seed, and then put the lid on, and then walk out there. You just walk along like this and get your seeds into the ground. It doesn't work quite as well when we're hitting on concrete, but it's February and just pure mud outside, so I can't actually demonstrate it outside right now. Now I'll walk through how to change the seed disc. that would be done by removing this wing nut on the bottom. There's a washer above that. And then the spacer. The spacer is hollow on one side, and that hollow needs to go up over that. So the bottom of the seed hopper is actually squared off, and it fits into this squared off hole in the housing, and that keeps the seed disc itself from turning. It keeps the seed hopper from turning, just the disc itself gets advanced. So if I want to change the seed disc to a different size, first I just stick it on there and put the thing back together. It comes with 7 seed discs, as you can see. Anything from like okra-sized seeds here, it's about 3/16 hole, up to great big fan-shaped slots for big pumpkin seeds or anything like this. The seed drop tube down through the housing is huge, so you can get a massive seed down that thing. It's just a matter of singulating out as many seeds as you want. Now this one, being it's for very large seeds, like lima beans or something like this, or great big pumpkins as I mentioned, it's thicker than the others and requires this spacer be installed in the center at the same time to kind of take up the extra slop. So you just select your appropriate plate. I think I may have not mentioned, but anyway, they give you one seed plate with no holes in it, so you can actually drill your own holes. There's some little startup holes there. There's little indentations that just show you where a hole should be drilled to get the spacing appropriate for, you know, where the thing is going to be tickled around by these things. By the drive tangs. So you can kind of customize your own, and you know, extra blank seed plates are available, you know, by request here at Earth Tools. Anyway, when you put this thing back together with whatever seed plate you're going to use, get that square hole through there. Oh, I should also demonstrate that this brush assembly at the bottom comes right up out of here. This brush is what kind of brushes the seeds off as this seed plate goes around. Yeah, it would be, well, down through the middle like this. So, and it kind of, you know, it brushes the seeds out of the way, so only 1 or 2 seeds or whatever's, you know, extra doesn't go dropping down there. These things do get worn over time. We have replacements in stock here at Earth Tools. And it just slides right off like that. So it's just retained on there by being wedged down inside this thing. It only goes in one place. You can see there's a couple little tabs here that brush assembly slides down in between to locate it so it doesn't spin in there. Okay, we've got that fully seated. And then make sure when you put the hopper back on that the brush is directly opposite the seed drop tube. Like so. Now, of course, it also helps if you put a seed plate back in it, because otherwise it just kind of throws a lot of seed on the ground. That, and that, washer, wing nut. Now, you can't, or you don't want to make the mistake of getting that wing nut too tight. You have to, when you tighten this firmly, you have to be able to still turn this little seed disc by hand here. If you get it too tight, it's not going to want to drive. So if everything's right, that seed disc will advance around easily like this. But if you get really carried away and get too much friction there, you can actually just want to shear these things off of here, these little drive tangs. Now another problem, the only problem we've ever found with these things in terms of kind of screwing things up, is if you get certain size seeds, and there's a couple variety of beans that seem to want to hang real bad, that have a real off shape. But anyway, if you get seeds in there where you've got multiple seeds jammed down in a hole and the brush assembly is having a hard time kind of kicking out the extras, it jams. And when you pull this thing up, instead of advancing the disc, this drive tang just kind of wants to bounce off. So it doesn't pull up with a nice resounding thunk. If you ever pull it up and it doesn't come all the way up thunk, you know that the seeds are trying to jam in there. So you can reach down in here and kind of work this thing back and forth manually, loosen up the wing nut and pull the brush up and get the seeds out from under it. If you pull it up and it wants to bounce and you just continue going and just try to force the seeds through, you're going to screw something up. You'll either wreck your brush assembly or you'll shear off that little square piece of plastic at the bottom of the seed hopper, because essentially when it's jammed it tries to rotate the whole hopper. But the seed hoppers are cheap and they're easy to replace too, and we stock them here at Earth Tools if needed. So We'll dump a few buckwheat seeds in here, which are a little big for the seed plate I put in, but what the heck. Just demonstrate how this thing works. Actually, it's doing, well, yeah, it's dropping 2 or 3 sometimes. But there it is. And with this little cutout on the bottom of this thing, it'll actually work well to jab through black plastic mulch. So if you're using this on black plastic mulch, you don't have to cut holes in advance. You just walk along and jab this thing in the ground, and it automatically cuts the hole and shoves the seed in. That's it. The Zilli Jab Planter, available at Earth Tools.